Back in the 1800s, there were many wars as a result of international and internal dispute, like the American Civil War in 1861. The number of casualties and injuries were extremely high. Anesthetic became popular due to its need while treating wounded soldiers or performing the needed amputation. The most commonly used anesthetic were ether and chloroform, but chloroform stood out. Why? We'll soon find out real quick. Both ether and chloroform is a pleasant smelling and colorless liquid. The development of ether came before chloroform. It was first created in 1535, but its anesthetic property was not discovered until 1842 by physician Crawford Williamson Long, when he performed a surgery to remove a tumor from his patient's neck. Instead, other substances like alcohol and opium were used. Sadly, Williamson was a bit late in publishing his research, and dentist William T.G. Morton took the title of being the first to introduce ether as an effective anesthetic. Morton focused on his research after seeing his colleague Horace Welsfeld's attempt in using nitrous oxide as an anesthetic. Finally, on March 30, 1842, Morton administered ether to a patient before his surgery in removing a tumor from his jaw. So if we have ether, then why chloroform? Well, firstly, it's good to know that chloroform also stands for trichloromethane, which, as the name suggests, is made through the chlorination of methane gas. Chloroform has fast-acting and non-flammable properties. Now, an important name to remember in the development of chloroform is Sir James Young Simpson, a Scottish physician. Before the creation of chloroform, ether was the most commonly used anesthetic, but James Simpson saw the drawbacks of ether. Being flammable, ether can't be used for gaslit procedure and certain surgery, and it seems to tend to excite the patient, leading to many interesting incidents, like, for example, when a patient put out his intestine during a procedure. James Simpson began creating and testing other alternatives for ether and eventually discovered chloroform. Without Food and Drug Administration at that time, he started mass producing it. Despite all the wonderful properties chloroform has, especially when compared to ether, there are still some major issues, with the main one being the fact that it requires higher physician skills to do, as the difference between a therapeutic and a harmful amount is very small. Too much, it paralyzes the patient's lung, leading to death, and on the other hand, too little, it doesn't work, and the patient will still feel the pain. There was a high rate of fatalities involved with the use of chloroform, but it still quickly became common. It was most famously used in 1853 on Britain's Queen Victoria during the birth of her 8th child, Prince Leopold. However, there were also some people who were against the use of chloroform. Many patients that are undergoing childbirth delivery or surgery had declined the use of anesthetic and decided to brave the pain. This is due to the belief that God had ordained that women should suffer during childbirth, or chloroform might affect the baby's health and cause organ damage. For others, it's just simply the idea that they can just be put to sleep. Now, for the more sciencey part, I'll have to call in my friend, Dr. Jake Harris, to explain. Anyways, thank you for following me on the historical factor that led up to the development of chloroform, or anesthetic in general.
Hi, I'm Dr. Jake Harris from the Harvard Medical School. After studying for over 10 years, completing my PhD, and discovering sushi, 3 questions still remain in my mind. What is anesthesia? How it works, and why it's needed? I thought about these 3 questions, researched for months and months, and I believe I've found some answers. My first question was, what is anesthesia? I've discovered that anesthesia is a type of medical drug that blocks the feeling of pain. It induces its user in a deep, unconscious state that blocks all sensation and feeling. Anesthesia allows medical and surgical procedures to be undertaken without causing large amounts of stress or discomfort. My second question was how it works. I've discovered that there are 2 types, general and local. General anesthetics are normally introduced through a thin tube, which is placed into one of the veins or inhaled. General anesthetic is basically a medically induced coma which renders the patient unresponsive or unconscious. Local anesthetics block the nerves of a particular body part or region to the brain, which temporarily blocks the nerves from carrying pain signals to the brain. General anesthetics work by blocking nerve transmission to pain centers in the sensory nervous system. This is caused by binding to and preventing the function of an ion channel in the cell membrane of nerve cells known as the sodium channel. Finally, my third question was why it's needed. I discovered that anesthesia is needed to allow surgeries such as orthopedic surgery, coronary surgery, and neurosurgery to take place without the patient feeling any pain. Without anesthesia, these surgeries wouldn't be physically possible due to high pain levels. An example of how severe this pain is, before anesthetic was invented, many patients who had surgery that would usually require anesthetic in modern day would die of shock due to the brain not being able to handle the severe amount of pain.
Now, I'm going to talk about the social problems that chloroform or anesthetic has solved, and how the situation was before chloroform being discovered. Once we talk about anesthetic or chloroform, we come up with childbirth. Before 19th century, the pain of giving birth is unimaginable. Ancient poets, chronicler, and novelists have recounted the suffering of women in childbirth. So to them, anesthetic such as chloroform was really helpful. Huge pain had been relieved. In 15th century, women usually had 5 to 10 children, but depending on whether they were able to survive from childbirth. Childbirth was so dangerous and painful that a woman would make out her will as soon as she found out she was pregnant. Even in 15th century, in America, the infant mortality among African and African American is still ranged from 28 to 50%, and the mortality in children that under 10 was 10 to 50%. It caused by maternal malnutrition, overwork, diseases, and the lack of medical access. Also, during the Mexican-American War, the chloroform was being used in battlefield for the first time. After the Mexican-American War, American military started officially using ether or chloroform as an anesthetic on battlefield. By 1849, chloroform officially issued by U.S. Army. Chloroform was taking a very essential place in battlefield in 1850s, in particular the Crimean War in 1949. Many doctors and nurses used to reduce the pain, also for relieve the pain that caused by trauma of amputation. The reason why chloroform was very important also because its fast-acting nature and a large number of positive reports. By the way, Queen Victoria used chloroform during her 8th delivery in 1853. And nowadays, in 20th century and 21st century, chloroform is being fully developed and they are no longer used in surgery today. It is used mainly in preparation of refrigerant. We can also find chloroform in some cough and cold medicine, dental products including toothpaste. Also recently, chloroform also used in kidnapping because chloroform is a fast-acting anesthetic. So chloroform is an ideal instrument of crime, of kidnapping.
Thanks for watching this episode of Crash Course. We'll see you in the next one.